like these post 9/11, for example, or when we all went through the SARS impact, video conferencing is an excellent business continuity tool. And I think every time we have unfortunate circumstances like this, the light is shed on how we can continue. And it's not just for information workers or people like us, being able to meet and being able to telework. It's about everyone else too. We on the event this morning, Janine Pelosi talked about Zoom is enabling digital classrooms. We've seen so many schools across different countries that are being shut down because of the spread or the fear of spread of coronavirus. So be able to continue that classroom experience through the use of video, where teachers and students can still connect and continue with their learning from their homes, or even healthcare. The not so critical healthcare cases can be addressed via teleconsultation, so that only the cases that really need the attention at times like these are addressed. So it's not just about information workers or being able to work in times like these from home, but it's also about so many other use cases and across so many vertical industries. So I think this is really a time when people need to look at technology seriously as a way to be able to continue working and keep business as usual. We see Dave on.
Great. Yeah, I think it is really fascinating that, you are seeing it. I know you're based in New Jersey, and their schools are closing, and they're having to pivot. How do you keep doing the education with that? Craig, any ideas around or tips for companies on how do they run like these virtual events? We're hearing conferences are being canceled. Right. And how do you still, if you're a tech company going there, get your word out. How do you demo the products? What sort of things would you think about?
Well, I think one of the key things you want to try and do is you want to democratize people who are participating from the far end, right? And not that it is the right example, but the whole COVID-19 is actually having a lot of companies try and do this now. The technology has been there in a lot of areas, but now they have this factor that's making them do that. So back to those conferences and ideas is, how can that person on that far end see what's going on? How can they feel like they're participating in the content or viewing everyone's reactions in the rooms? I think some of the key things that come into play here is not only the personal experience, what all of us are doing right now from our desk, but the group experience. How, on that group side, in the room experience, is there intelligent cameras that are picking up, zooming to the person who's speaking? Is there good audio mic pickup? There's some great technologies in place there. So I think the real thing is making everyone feel as if they're part of that same collaborative experience.
Yeah, I know. In trying to do our virtual event today, that was part of it. Like, how do you, before, right, if you're all in that room together, you would all be chatting and talking. So, how do you put out those icebreakers and get people thinking about those things? Hi, Dave.
Hi.
Thank you for joining. We're really excited to have you here today. We just kicked off, but I'd love for you to give a quick introduction about you and your analyst firm.
Hi, I'm Dave Michaels from Talking Points. I'm sorry I'm late. I had a little bit of computing trouble, but I'm here.
Awesome. We're very excited to have you. All right. So, Erwin, what are you seeing, like, just in terms of mass company communications, like all hands, or how a company would change to their SKO perhaps, and making this virtual?
Sure. I think the biggest thing that we're seeing is a lot more use of video and a lot more informal use of video. That when companies used to do video broadcasts from the CEO or the town hall or something like that, it was a large production. I've seen scenarios where obviously they would typically have a studio and they would hire people to come in and do makeup and lighting. The network would essentially get frozen because God forbid anybody touches the network when there's the CEO broadcast going on, or making sure that multicast works and things like that. So I think the biggest change that we've seen is it's a lot easier now for people to share video, to take an application like Zoom, or either use it as a live platform or to record video and then share that out through a video content management solution, or through popping a video into a team space or chat room or something like that. So to me, the democratization of video has been one of the key changes. Walked in an organization the other day, and we went into a conference room, and the first thing that popped up on the screen when somebody fired up the monitor was the daily status update, and it was a video where the operations person recorded 5 minutes. Hey, here's what's going on today. Here are the things we need to focus on. Previously, that might have been sent and composed through an email that maybe some people read and some don't.
Very true. Very true. Hey, Dave, do you have any tips on that? How do you do those mass communications to your employees if they are home or with this coronavirus?
Well, you need a universal solution that works for every environment. And so, I'm on a desktop right now, but I was having desktop trouble, and I was thinking, what are the devices I could use? So you need something that will work with across mobile devices, across different operating systems, across different types of desktops, and of course, different room systems, which can really simplify the case if enterprise deploys room systems. You also need to be able to address different types of things than just video. You need to be able to address content sharing. You need to be able to address, maybe some sort of Q&A type of channel, and because people are in different time zones, you need a means to account for that. And, in some cases you can schedule around that. In some cases you can't. And so you need to be able to record the meetings. You need to be able to securely be able to share recorded content.
Yeah, excellent. I think you doing things like on demand or like SimuLive we have coming out the end of this month for our webinars. And that's giving you the capability to record, and maybe you only get that CEO that 1 hour of the day, but somebody else could still be on answering the Q&A, which is a great way to do
I'm
that.
surprised how often, a lot of meetings you don't need to participate, you just receive. I get invited to a lot of webinars, and I can't make them during the time that they broadcast them live, but I try to catch them later. And it's amazing to me how often I can't do that because they don't make it available, because it's there's a long delay between when they post it or whatnot. And to me, it's, you need to have information on your terms. You need to be able to get it when you need it.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. And you talked a little bit, and Craig, you did too, kind of about how do you make this whole immersive atmosphere work? And I think that's really the nice bridge into kind of UC, right? And how do you really make this a unified communications across chat, phone, video, and everything you're seeing there? So, Rupam, do you want to talk a little bit about how's the industry really changed in that ways?
Yeah.
What sort of trends you're seeing?
Right. And the most important thing is chat and phone and video are not separate communication tools anymore. They are single source collaboration tools. And that's also a huge user problem, which was associated with all of us having too many apps, too many tools, the constant pain of app switching that users were getting tired of. So I think that's where the industry has made a huge progress. And as Dave and others pointed out, it's simple, it's easy to use. And because of all the consumerization that we have seen of video, we are seeing a very, very strong emergence of the video first enterprise, where people are actually preferring to join on video first. And again, going back to my roots, I started covering video conferencing 20 years back, literally needed an IT guy to walk in, even using those big clumsy remotes, remote control. So, everything has changed. It's one click to join. And because the power of video keeps users engaged in meetings, people are opting to click on video first, and then obviously escalate it to content collaboration, ideation, whiteboarding, and so many other tools that literally add to the collaboration experience. So I think everything is coming together. It's easy, it's fun, it's user-friendly, and it's being driven by a video-first experience.
I love that you say it's fun. Dave, you certainly do have a fun background on as well.
I think Erwin does too. And, you don't always have to make your background so obvious. You can't really tell necessarily that Erwin has a fake background, but it's a very powerful feature. Erwin, is that a fake background? Can you confirm that?
Yes, it is a fake one. Yeah, and to me, we were talking actually just on the analyst call. When I work at home, one of the things that has changed around video is it's not as formal as it used to be, but still, you want a decent background behind you. So, if I'm in a spare bedroom and I'm on a video call, I used to run down, run to a different room or to a better backdrop. Having that virtual background eliminates having to change location 6 times during the day.
I wanted to call out Janelle's virtual workspace behind her. I mean, it took a moment to realize that, but you see the people busy in the background before she switched it. It was kind of nice. It made it very relaxed to know that, okay, she's in a work environment. We can talk. Yeah.
I look more professional here. Yeah.
Well, it's not more professional. It's just more, now I think I want to go skiing when I see those.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
different.
Maybe the beach. Yeah. All right. I'll go back to the office if you're more comfortable. You have one that I have. That may, is that great?
That's right. All right.
Yes. We'll head out to the Irish pub later. There you go. Yeah, I think you absolutely just need to keep it fun, right? And keep it engaging and simple. And Rupon, like you're talking, just one platform that they can use. But you could also do that with the best of breed, with integrations as well. And kind of couple this together a bit. Dave, do you want to talk about that a bit? Some of the options there?
I'm not sure what you're asking. Clarify your question.
Well, I don't think you really necessarily need to go all in on one particular platform. So if you're on Microsoft Teams, you may want to use an integration with Zoom. If you're in Slack, you may want to use integration with Zoom. You certainly could go all in, but a lot of companies do kind of mix and match these different providers.
Well, as a desktop user, it doesn't matter, right? I can click on links all day, and in fact, I do. I participate in 3 or 4 different types of platforms on a daily basis. As a desktop user, it's not a big deal. As an enterprise strategy, it gets a little more complicated because you want to be able to have your rooms, and you want to make the rooms really intuitive with the one-touch join. You have to have the scheduling figured out so that all these systems work together. So I think from an enterprise perspective, there's a preference to have an enterprise strategy as a default approach, and that's really largely driven by the rooms. Now, we've seen in the last 3-4 months, significant inroads or progress made with some of the major vendors making their room systems more interoperable. And that's actually really exciting. So now you could actually have, vendor A's room system and still be able to join vendor B's systems or meetings pretty seamlessly. And so I think as we embrace remote work and distributed work much more, the room system conversation becomes much more important to the strategy. But as an individual desktop user, it doesn't matter.
Great. And Erwin, a lot of these companies are still on-prem and they're thinking about moving into a cloud solution. What sort of considerations should they make, or what sort of impact can they expect? Yeah,
I think our data showed, at least specifically around voice, about 40% or 36% or so of companies are still on-prem, but of those, almost half were planning to move to cloud. I think the biggest consideration is the transition. It's what can I do to avoid forklift upgrades, especially for larger organizations? How can I transition to be able to roll out some of the new cloud-based capabilities and integrate those into the environment that I have today and have more of a gradual transformation? The second big issue that we see organizations really struggling with is network and performance, and ensuring that as I go to a traffic flow where all of my locations are connected through an MPLS network into my data centers, to one where all of my locations are now going out over internet, SD-WAN, et cetera, to cloud provider. How do I make sure that I'm getting the kind of performance that I need, securing the connection points and so on.
Great. And I'm just looking in chat here. Larry has a question, and I'll just put this out here to any of you. How do you handle the multi-generational? So you've got millennials, you've got baby boomers, and how do you really think about communications to all these different ages of your team? Any ideas there?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. I think I have 2 teenagers, so they communicate mostly through chat and video. TikTok is a pretty big application these days. We've seen among the enterprise market, one of the things I think that drove Zoom video and Zoom's growth was it was really easy for people to say, what, we've got this audio conferencing tool, we all hate it. Hey, this Zoom thing looks pretty cool. Why don't we just download it and start using it? So if IT isn't thinking proactively and isn't thinking about delivering solutions that people need and want and will use, people are going to find a way to go around and bring those kind of applications into the enterprise themselves. And like I said, it's been happening with Zoom, it happened with Slack, it happened with Google Docs. There's still this continual lack within a lot of IT shops of thinking about how do people communicate and collaborate across different generations? What are the kinds of capabilities that I can bring in that improve the ability for people to engage?
Great. Craig, were you going to add something there?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. There was a brief that I wrote about that, and it's one of these undeniable trends taking place. People focus a lot on the millennials. How do I address the millennials? But I think you even said it once. You said, if I hear one more person talk just about the millennials, I'm going to blow up. It's about the diversity of the generations that are there, right? I mean, you can point to, in practical sense, there's 5 generations in the workforce right now, 3 that are really impactful. And you are right. I think the way they each have learned and come to their work professional career different ways by how they've learned to work. Some are auditory, some are visual, some are tactile. If you think about the generations going all the way down to millennials and holding their devices in their hands. To your point, I think what you need to do is have multimodality of communication options to people. These unified communication platforms allow that type of opportunity. We deal a lot with video ourselves, but so it's easy for us to jump on a video call and be comfortable with a casual background or what have you. Some other people are more formal. They only want to do it by a phone. They only believe in talking in person. It's the Willy Loman salesman person, kind of picking up the phone. I got to talk to this guy. So I think to answer your question, I think is you have to have the opportunity for people to leverage multiple modes of talking: phone, chat, video, but then still tie it so that these threads can still somehow be linked.
I want to throw out there and complement that with the way work is kind of changing itself, and so I think what Craig is sitting on is a lot about the way people just want to interact and communicate verbally or visually, but work has actually changed. And so one of the biggest features of meetings like what we're having is the ability to share content. And so after 5-10 years of digital transformation in the enterprise, almost everything we do at the enterprise now in our work is shareable. I always think about the Mad Men. They would always meet in the conference room to look at artwork, and that artwork came from the guy downstairs that drew it on an easel and was presenting it, and they all discussed it. But today, that artwork was probably drawn on a computer program, and they can present it on a conference like this just as easily as they could back then on the easel. And so it's not just artwork, it's prototypes, it's almost anything you build now, it's got some sort of visual representation. Almost anything we create is in the document or can somehow be shared electronically. And so as the nature of work has changed, the reason we meet is often to discuss our work. And so for some people, it's all about the content share or sharing a screen, going through a document. For other people, it's more about the visual interface. For other people, it's just about the audio. But it doesn't really matter because a tool like video conferencing can meet all those different needs.
Yeah.
If I may add just one very quick comment, when we talk about millennials and Gen Z, Gen Y, it's not just the tool sets that they're looking for or the digital communication tools. It's also about what kind of workplace they want to go into. Yeah. And so this huge, they are choosing their choice of workplace based on how modern that office is. And so we've seen this huge evolution towards modern offices, very vibrant, very futuristic, flexible. A lot of millennials want to walk into their workplace at 11 a.m., not at 9 a.m. So the flex hours combined with the look and feel of those offices. And we've done a lot of work around how to make your real estate as it exists today turn them into modern offices, just sort of break those walls and create something more vibrant and more collaborative and more exciting.
Great.
I was just going to add, it's really interesting to think about it. The dynamic has been, especially what we're seeing now with coronavirus, is we have to have a good work at home program, yet companies are spending an awful lot of money doing what Rupam just mentioned, making the workplace more enticing so that you're there all day, that you get fed, you have dry cleaning, you have, stylist, fitness center, et cetera on site. It's definitely an interesting dichotomy.
there's a
Craig, do
lot
you have
going-
any tips on how do I make that office space modern?
Oh, is that well, one of the things you see here is this. Here's one of the trends taking place, and people in corporate real estate probably see this, but it's the transition from permanent spaces to more activity-based oriented spaces, where you have people going from this is my desk to my cubicle to this is where I might collaborate. This might be where I might concentrate. This might be where I'm going to go and socialize. And the fourth area is actually where I might go and listen or be presented to and learn. You can think of those 4 activities as probably covering about 80% of what's taking place in the workspaces. And what's happening is I think real estate professionals and facility managers are becoming smart around, the smart ones are doing some great things. They're having technology that enables those as needed and appropriate. And it really becomes a layered approach, right? We all carry our cell phones. And so I might start a meeting on this and then transition to a collaboration space that might have ideation going on. Or I might just be where I want to learn and I might be listening in on the presentation going around the room. So the diversity of the spaces around activity is becoming a key element that's enabling this modern workflow.
And you touched a little bit on the interactive touchscreens. Dave, do you think that's picking up as a trend? What are you seeing?
Absolutely. In fact, I was really surprised. I was at a recent conference and I was walking around the expo hall and I couldn't believe how many different screens there were on the floor. I mean, it's the, the traditional whiteboard is pretty much the last analog device in the conference room, and it's time for it to go because of this point I was making earlier about digital transformation. It's great. We often write all these brilliant ideas on a whiteboard and then take a picture of it. And so now we can capture the rebuilding of the notes. We could mark up things in the background. So you load a picture, you load something on it, you draw on it. So I think that area of the technology is still, I would say emerging. It's not as mature as some of the other aspects of the conference room, but it's the last piece, and it has to change. It's a very important part of it. It's the way we ideate. What's the word I want?
Ideate.
Ideate.
Yeah, it's the way we come up with ideas. It's the way we actually collaborate. Yeah.
Great. So another trend that we're hearing a lot about is AI, natural language processing, machine learning, facial recognition. Rupam, what sort of things are you hearing that are actually being implemented and that people are excited about?
Well, there's a lot going on. And it's getting more and more established, right? In the meeting room, we are seeing intelligent framing, so the meeting room experience is better. Voice assisted meetings, so you're able to walk into a meeting room and start and end and launch capabilities like recording and so on. And it's getting better and better. What I get excited about, and I think there was a question in the Q&A box about when will going to work become obsolete. And so, literally when we think of what will the workplace be 10, 20 years from now, the most important aspect that might come into place, predictive AI. If you look at all of the increasing output from sensors and machines and social networks, and as all of that gets consolidated, in the future, we expect machines to be able to predict our needs and meet our needs before we ourselves realize. That's where AI is eventually heading. Right now, we are literally scratching the surface. We are at the bottom of the pole in terms of using AI to make the user experiences better. And AI is very much already there in the meeting room, but I also feel that there should be more focus on meaningful AI. Just throwing around words like AI everywhere does not make sense. What can it do to make your meeting experience better, and how can it make that particular use case that you're going into that room for better?
I've been very cynical of AI because we had all these high expectations and how it was going to change everything. And for the most part, I think it's made things generally worse. However, meeting technology, I did not have any expectations around AI, and it's been totally exceeding. I can't believe how much AI has made a difference in meetings, and specifically, I think auto framing has been a huge one, because it used to be you had either had a bowling alley picture with your little tiny heads in the room, and now you've got this idea of auto framing to the right person speaking. And the way you used to do that is with the remote controls, and you couldn't focus on the meeting; they weren't engaging. So that's been huge, auto framing. I think the sound improvements and noise mitigation and picking up the right speaker has been just tremendous. And now I'm getting kind of interested in the captioning and the transcripts of the meetings. I think the technology is finally catching up there. So I think actually this was not expected. I think the expectation was going to be around contact center or some other areas of communications where AI was going to make this huge difference. But I think it's meetings that is really going to benefit the most and is benefiting the most from AI technology.
There's two elements of it I think about, and you guys are hitting it spot on, which is there's AI for convenience and there's AI for insights, at least in the meeting room space. So convenience, you hit exactly on it. Auto framing, great microphones, auto mute, things like that. We are then seeing AI giving insights to the administrators. Is my room being utilized? There's even some vendors like Neat putting sensors in their rooms for like CO2 and things like this. But the next horizon I'm looking forward to is AI for insights for the presenters. So there's some basic ones coming along, like hands being raised. We were just talking about this in the previous session that we were just in as a group. Can I give some information to the presenter without interrupting them to let them know what's going on, hand being raised? Beyond that is we're going to start having the opportunity to look at eye gazes and sentiment. I'm presenting, is everyone engaged? Are they looking at what's taking place in the camera? Are their eyes diverted? So there's this interesting horizon that we might be able to give some good insights to presenters to make the in-meeting experience more interesting. It's still a little bit further off. It's close by. It's not like Dave's Star Trek ship out way in the future, but it's coming.
And also better meeting room utilization, right? And Zoom has done that with the smart scheduling displays outside the meeting room, where better insights into unutilized meeting room. And I think there's a stat I had seen the other day: 40% of the meetings that are booked go unused. And so being able to release those rooms in time so that someone else, because real estate is going to shrink, number of meetings are growing. So better data, better analytics, and better insights on using those meeting rooms better is another aspect of AI.
Great. We have a question from Lindsay, who is joining us on YouTube Live. She's asked, what are the trends going when you think about delivering training? Anybody want to pick that one up?
Yeah, I think that's been a big driver of video. We worked with one organization that has a very large union presence, and whenever there's a change made to the union rules, under the terms of the contract, they had to send out a trainer to go out to every work location, present a live training class, get everybody to sign off that they had attended the class. They were able to negotiate a replacement using video, and you can imagine the potential cost savings, carbon footprint reduction, and better utilization of staff as well. So I see a lot of interest in integrating video platforms into learning management systems, again, to enable whether it's classroom-based video, one-on-one video, or so on as part of training solutions.
Great. I think those integrations are key.
There's a similar trend in just regular education, and they call it the Upsidedown school or something like that, where you basically go home and you do your lectures on some sort of video or some sort of electronic content, and then you go to school to do your homework. And it kind of makes sense, because when you get stuck on your homework, you need help, and there's people at the school to help you figure that out. And when you're in a lecture, you don't necessarily need that support. And so I think the same thing is happening in the enterprise, where you could do, and it depends on the type of job and the equipment needed and stuff like that. But I think we're seeing this in general, where you do your work at home, and whether that be training or other types of writing or whatever you do for work, and then you go to work, the office, to interact, and you get this is where you get feedback on your work, or you get support on your work, or you collaborate on your work, and then you go back home to do your work. And so I think that training, to the question is, how does this apply to training? Training is video is a great way to do training, and they should do that at home.
Makes
And
a lot of sense.
employee onboarding. I mean, that's a big use case for training. And yeah, that term, I believe, Dave, is flipped classroom.
The flipped classroom. Huh. All right. So let's see. Kay has asked, how do companies support old AV equipment in the rooms? And do you have to replace everything? Craig, you probably have a lot of insights on that.
No, you don't need to replace everything. I think what you're seeing taking place is this. So we can talk about Zoom, for example. Services are being provided by these cloud-based services to enable these traditional endpoints known as SIP or H323 endpoints to use a connector service, some type of video interop service to bring them into this experience. So what's nice about that is as companies are still sweating these assets, using them up for their 5-7 year lifespan, they can still have a transition to their video conferencing service of choice as well. On the flip side, what's also is kind of nice too is the cost of room equipment is actually coming down to a nice price point. There's a great price performance element taking place. It really hit home in the huddle room, but it's actually going up size to medium and large rooms as you see companies like Logitech bringing out some great peripherals. Nariva's got some great USB peripherals as well too that allow you to do great audio and video in this space. So you don't need to chuck it out. There are services, interop services that enable this to work. And then when time does come, you can probably refurbish that room at a lot lower price point than you originally got into.
Excellent. I'm going to let you guys each do one round robin on what do you think are the top two, maybe we each pick two trends for future of work. Give me a second to think about that. It was not on your prepared list of questions. All right, let's start off with you, Erwin.
Oh, put me on the spot. I think one is one we just talked about, AI. I think we are not even one fraction of 1% scratching the surface of what AI will be able to do in terms of intelligent analytics, in terms of providing a personal assistant, helping people find information, manage information, and so on. So I think to me that's the biggest one. And I think just the increase in flex work, the ability to work from anywhere, from any device, any location, especially as we start to see collaborative tools start to permeate into the frontline workers who have largely been, I wouldn't say ignored, but haven't been the focus of a lot of the collaboration initiatives that have occurred in the marketplace in the last couple of years. So I think those are the two big ones.
All right, Dave.
Yeah, I think I have very similar thoughts. We've been talking about the work anywhere, anytime, any place for a decade now, but it seems to be shifting. I personally tell people that I work a split shift, 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours late at night. And to me, that is a much more logical way of splitting up the day. And I talk to people who are still going to the office, still commuting in the morning, working a full 8 hours, which is an exhausting thing to do, commuting back at night. And I ask them, well, how do you deal with things like doctor's appointments? How do you deal with it? And there's this whole dance. Well, depending how busy it is, I'll take a day off, or I'll do flex time. It's just like this whole complicated thing that just seems so alien to me at this point now. And so I think this idea of flexible work, where people more or less just get their work done one way or another, I think is becoming very important. And as a result, we need the spaces and tools that accommodate that lifestyle. It's both at the office. We talk a lot about at the office, and Craig touched on that a little bit about the way open floor plans are changing and stuff like that. But it's also at home, and it's interesting to me when you talk to a realtor, they don't get this yet, right? They want to know how many bedrooms you want. Well, I want an office. Is that a bedroom or is that a den? They don't have a way of really figuring that one out. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. So I think we're adapting to this very flexible way of working as one key trend. And the other key trend is this what I touched on earlier, this digital transformation issue, is that everything is really becoming electronic, and that is changing so many of our older assumptions. And it's been a while since I've worked in an office, but I used to, when I would travel, I'd come back and there'd be a pile of paper in front of my door that had, everything from birthday cards to expense reports to all the stuff that just had to be physically signed. And if I was out of the office, everything just stopped. And now almost everything is kind of moving toward this electronic environment, which is not new. But what is new is that we have to now start rethinking our processes, rethinking, the regular meetings that we have, rethinking our flows, how much of it can be done distributed, how much things like analyst events or things like any kind of conference, can it be done remotely or distributed? We have to really, almost everything is up for grabs in terms of reinvention.
All right, Rupam.
AI has been taken, so I cannot speak to it.
Craig, get ready, you're last.
Area of interest for us has been the evolution of the modern office. It's a trend that's really taking shape, and especially the modern meeting room. I think meeting room as an asset have been ignored by IT in the past, and evolution of huddle spaces, for example. You have so many open offices, and there's been so much of pushback. A lot of workers do not want to be in those open offices. I saw an interesting article yesterday about open offices and the coronavirus scare. People are getting nervous about that. So that aside, huddle spaces provide that disruption-free setting for better collaboration. And Frost & Sullivan has a stat. There are 33 million huddle rooms out there. Only 3% are video enabled. So imagine 97% of those rooms are not fully technology enabled today. So such a huge upside to make our offices better, modern, and more attractive. And the second trend, and this is something that has been talked about quite a bit, is enabling frontline workers with better communication collaboration tools. The stats are what?
That's very good. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
2.5 billion frontline workers out there. 70% of the worker population is deskless workers. What are we doing for them? What is the right next generation communication device for them? Because video is not just for information workers. Video is for nurses. Video is for teachers and shift workers and factory workers. And you can resolve problems faster. And of course, video in the contact center, that is being talked about for ages, but still not happening. How can you serve customers better and faster? I think the possibilities are limitless. Excellent.
All right, Craig. Last. It's sometimes the hardest.
I know. I'm looking through all my notes, and like Rupama said, AI, check. Huddle rooms, check. You guys did a great job. There was one spot one, and maybe I'll try and see if I can do something to bring something all together here. But the one thing that I think is becoming more apparent is the importance of end user experience in what's defining as conference room. So a lot of in the past has been, it shall be as this, and IT pushes it down, and they have some big vendor contract and they push down what's taking place. But as you see from this trend of what we call shadow IT, where if an end user doesn't like what's going on, they'll go out and get something on their own and enable it because they can do that. Slack, a free Slack experience, for example, to do that. So I think end user voice in the workflow, in the experience is becoming much more prevalent, and it's getting the recognition that it has. One of the things I've admired about what you guys have done is you bring in modern software development techniques to video conferencing. And you're able to do a refresh and provide features on a very rapid velocity, which is nice. Which, if you look back even 5 years ago, it was difficult. People had to wait for that update. Now, what's really happening, which is even better now, is that companies are becoming smart and giving those IT administrators 2 ways to control this. Yeah, you can have the rapid releases to your end users, or I can do a more controlled release as well too. So the worlds are blending together. So that end user voice is becoming more important, and I think it's getting a relevant seat at the table. I'll just leave it at that. I won't even try and go any further than that.
Excellent. I love it. So we've got AI, we've got modern work offices, we've got frontline workers, huddle spaces, just everything going electronic. Dave, I haven't heard that one, so that's a great one. The shift in work styles, needing flexible work, and rapid innovation that's happening. These are all great. All right, we're at 45 minutes, but I have one last very important question for you guys. Zoomtopia is coming up in September. I know most of you have attended in the past. Just curious, Erwin, I know we had a lot of fun with Leonard Skinner last time. So I just want to vote, or maybe quick round robin, what band would you like to see at Zoomtopia this year? Erwin,
It's got to
let's
be
start with
Dead and
you.
Sure.
Company.
I've got to go with Queen and Adam Lambert. I don't think you could top that.
Ah.
Beyonce, can you afford her?
Ooh, that's a tough one there.
I asked my 17-year-old daughter, and she said maybe Lizzo or Shawn Mendes. And if you have them, she'll travel with me to Zoomtopia. And
Yeah, there you
Dave,
go.
I love it.
Look at Dave's background. If you could bring him back from the dead, that would be amazing. How about that, huh?
Well, I saw in Boulder the Dead and Company concert, and I think that'd be a fantastic addition to Zoomtopia.
Well, what you guys did was you actually did this great generational blend, right? You had Snoop Dogg and Leonard Skinner. It was
We
like
did, yeah.
Aerosmith meets Run DMC. So what's the next one? Is it like Kid Rock meets I don't know. Who's next there? Is this cross-generational get together?
We will find out. I don't know. So, but I will put in all these suggestions to our marketing team and hope you guys can be there this year. Hopefully we'll all be in person. So, all right. Thank you guys. I really appreciate your time. Thank you all our guests who joined and your questions. It was a great conversation. Thank you.
thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.